Order the Thursday, May 6, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Please call the roll.
Glenn Hughes,
Here.
Greg Burrow,
Here.
Mike Pratt,
Here.
Gene Bolte,
Here.
Rex Meyer,
Here.
Bruce Forster.
Here. The next order of business is the approval of the previous minutes. So move.
Second.
Gene moves. Who seconded? Glenn? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We need a motion to adjourn pursuant to the county board's vote on petition 21-P-1560 that was approved on April 15th, 2021.
So moved.
Glenn makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Craig seconds. Any discussion? Favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll start out with old business. Petition 21-P-1559 of Petitioner Jared M. Zellhofer, permanent parcel number 13-21-01-101-005 in Maine Township. Petitioner is requesting a special use zoning for the purpose of conducting a business for construction of agricultural buildings, production of steel roofing, lawn care, landscaping services, and general carpentry. Petitioner present.
You bet.
So, as we left this at the last meeting, Mr. Zellhofer is supposed to be giving us clarification and basically a picture of how he's planning on making the move or how he's planning his business going forward so that we can help facilitate that move. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Zellhofer has prepared a statement that he would like to read to everyone.
One in first.
That again.
I'm just asking.
No, that's fine. Solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give should be true.
Yes, I do.
And that over.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the rest of the board members. I would like to begin tonight with some clarification. During the last hearing on this petition, there was testimony given by the Lee County zoning administrator that was not entirely factual factually accurate and some of the time frame. The satellite picture that we had, which is your picture number 1, I believe is a couple-year-old picture from, I believe, Google Earth. It doesn't accurately reflect the current condition of the property. So I think that kind of got overlooked a little bit. And I want to just make sure we are 100% crystal clear on the property we're talking about. Since that satellite a couple of years ago, we have actually removed several small buildings and brought in some shipping containers. Your picture number 2 is actually a letter that I wrote to Wendy Ryerson in the assessment office, which was dated 1/11/21, actually before we had even completed that. So also at the last hearing, there was kind of an insinuation that I had stopped getting building permits in order to evade taxes. And I wanted to set the record straight on that too, that that's simply not the case. And if you take the time to read the email to Wendy, you'll see that I actually try to notify her every step of the way, kind of what we're doing. She since visited the property she said she would be out, her response to the email would be out to look at the buildings that were removed, look at the container structure and decide. I believe her summary was that they would tax the roof structure over it, but they wouldn't tax the shipping containers. So at my first meeting with D. Duffy back in, I believe it was February, or certainly early in the year, I had brought this up and she said that we just needed to focus on her list of things for now and we could deal with that later. So I just want to make sure we got that out in the open here before we move forward. So before I move on to our proposal, is there any questions about that? So at the last meeting, the board left it kind of in my hands to try to come up with some kind of proposal how to remedy the 1749 Z-Best violations. And there were several things discussed. They said to come back in 30 days, which of course turned into 60 days, and come and present a proposal. So even in 60 days, I have explored several options and I've put together 2 proposals here that I'd like to present for the board's consideration. Okay, so proposal number 1 is actually a business amnesty program. So the problem you're facing with many businesses, with my business and hundreds of other businesses in Lee County, is that there is not enough commercial or industrial zone properties appropriate for the current existing businesses. As of about a year ago, there was 3,261 registered businesses in Lee County, not to mention any unregistered businesses. I have asked the zoning department and the assessment office how many special use, commercial, and industrial zone properties there are currently in the county. I filled out a data acquisition agreement and Wendy Ryerson was able to send me the 2 lists that I asked for. From what I can tell on those lists, there's approximately 393 properties with special use, commercial, or industrial zoning in Lee County. In that 393, that also includes some municipalities, fire departments, and state of Illinois property. As you can see, there's nowhere near 3,261 commercial or industrial zone properties to support the existing businesses, much less any new ones. In 2020, Lee County set up an amnesty program. I believe they started in maybe 2019 for buildings that did not have a permit. I would like to know if there is a way to do something similar for the existing businesses in the county that are not on properly zoned parcels. This will be an ongoing problem that will have to be addressed sooner or later. The second option would give you a progress update on what I found and pertains directly to my business. Since the last meeting, I've investigated 40 to 50 properties in Lee County and other surrounding counties as well. Very few of the property owners are willing to sell, and even fewer of the properties would have a good chance of getting rezoned. Picture number 3 that you have in your packet shows an extension property that I've been working on for about a year or so behind my current railroad property, which is zoned industrial. My original plan was to acquire a 120-foot strip behind the current railroad property. Has now fallen through 2 different times and looked like it is no longer a viable option for Z-Best relocation. I'm currently working with the mayor and the city of Amboy Council on a plan to try to develop multiple properties inside of the city limits. We have pictures 4 through 13 in your packet, along with a letter from the mayor, Hamburger. This plan would involve having to purchase multiple properties from the city and multiple private parties. The scope of work is pretty massive and includes, but is not limited to, the following. Hundreds of trees need to be removed, acquire permits to fill in the floodplain, 35,000 cubic yards of fill material to be hauled in, compacted, and graded. We need a new highway access, new drainage ditch construction. There's road and right-of-way vacation. There's engineering, surveying, and other certifications that have to be performed. The pictures that you're seeing is of a 110-year-old milk plant that's in Amboy. That factory is part of the parcels that we would be purchasing, and we would end up having to do complete renovation, plumbing, electrical, major exterior, and roof repair. And after everything else gets completed, we still have to break ground and build a new production plant. The milk plant would simply be overflow storage and vehicle and equipment parking. Another real problem with relocating the current facility right now is the inflated cost of building materials. As you may be aware, lumber is up 311%. Steel products are up 65 to 100% from a year ago. The future prices of building materials are still moving upward, and it will take years, not months, for any major correction to happen.
Mr. Chairman, if I may I ask a few follow-up questions?
The mayor's letter is long. If anybody has a question, go ahead and ask it at this time. Anybody on the board that is?
How many acres do you envision needing?
So the proposal to the city of Amboy, if all of the pieces fall into place, it's going to be somewhere around 7.5 to 8.25 acres. We were looking for about 10, but we're finding that to be impossible inside the city limits, and nobody in the county appears willing to sell off things along 52, especially farmland. And the other properties, like I said, I've investigated so many other properties. They're either one, not price feasible, wrong zoning, not a good location, wrong power requirements, not posted roads, et cetera, et cetera.
Did you look out the Grand River ordinance?
I did. There are a few available buildings out there. Problem is location. That's great for manufacturing, but that's basically a killer for retail. The other problem out there is, even though those buildings are as bad or worse than the facility I'm looking at now, the price is very, very high. Probably because the landfill is there, I'm assuming. So I've kind of exhausted that resource as well. I'm actually friends with Andy that runs the place out there, and I rented a building from him years ago.
At this point, I think most of us read through, Ms. Kennedy, if you've got some questions, I'd be willing to entertain them.
Thank you. So, Mr. Zollinger, you said that you worked with the city of Amboy. What's been their response, if any?
So the city of Amboy has been very welcoming. Not only are they trying to think outside the box to make this happen, but they're excited to have the business. They want to keep this business in the county. To be honest, I have looked outside the county, and there is some viable options outside the county. That's not what I want to do. I want to keep my business in the county. My kids go to school here. I was raised here, but I'm the only breadwinner, so it comes down to I have to do what's best for the business, which is ultimately best for my family. They have agreed to research my proposal to them as far as filling in floodplains. They're willing to help me with any zoning issues that I need. They're willing to give me street access, improve the alleyways in terrible shape leading up to the mill plant. They're willing to rebuild that for heavy traffic. So they've been very, very accommodating.
And I know last time during our hearing, the zoning board had asked you to provide some sort of a timeline of when this transition could be made. And I know at that time, 5 years was mentioned. Have you explored what time frame this transition would be on?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So putting a time frame on this, this has so many moving parts here, and I'm finding I'm not dealing with one individual. I'm dealing with 3 private parties. I'm dealing with the city of Amboy on multiple parcels of theirs. I'm dealing with highway access. We're still even investigating what all it would take to even renovate the old milk plant there. I know that after speaking with the city council and the mayor, they said that I better, no matter what I do, I need to be patient because they're going to be anything but fast. And my gut tells me that just to get all the preliminary stuff out of the way is going to be over a year just for that. So that's before I can even start thinking about development, all the amount of fill, the amount of trees, not to mention the price of everything. Taking what you just said about the 5 years, realistically, to move my business 100%, every facet of it, every piece of equipment, make sure everything is completely reset. There'll be inspections in the new facility. My estimate is probably closer to 10 years, not 5 years. And that's, like I said, any one of these pieces of the puzzle could fall through and reset me moving forward. I'm trying to come up with the best solution I can, as you guys requested. To be honest, there's not a whole lot of options out there. And this one is about the only, at the current time, this is about the only viable option that I have left. Like I said, there's been 40 to 50 properties all the way up 52, 30, ordinance plan, 251. Mendota, I mean, I've shaken a lot of trees. And to me, at this point, this is probably the most viable to keep it in the county. The city really wants to work with me. They want the business there. They want the extra jobs there. So the time frame is tricky, and I don't know how long it would take with them, other than what they told me is it's not going to be quick.
Would that still be your first choice and would be the old plan, or is there something else?
There is,
You're gonna need to use the mic because you've got people on.
The middle lane, your first choice.
well, it's my only choice after the 120-foot strip of field fell through, where that railroad property is not going to be wide enough, especially there appears to still be some debate on what's the front, what classification my business is or isn't, and what the actual setback would be. But my first choice was there, and I thought I had all those pieces of the puzzle, and didn't pan out. So at this point, providing I can get all of these pieces of the puzzle that I propose to the city, that's really my only choice. If 2 or 3 of these fall through, I'm back to square one as far as finding something suitable.
I know you've got yourself between a rock and a hard place, but at this point, I'm not sure I've got much sympathy for you. This has gone back a long ways. You brought up the situation of real estate taxes. I don't think anybody really made a big deal, and I don't think Ms. Duffy made a big deal about whether you had or hadn't paid real estate taxes. It was just a question of not knowing whether all the taxes had been addressed. To me right now, that's secondary. You didn't get permits for building stuff, and that can be addressed. As you said, we've been looking at it actually since 19 and trying to get permits taken care of, trying to get people educated. But the bigger issue here is your violation of zoning. And I don't think there's any question based on your own business cards, your Facebook site, your description of what you were doing there, that you violated the zoning code for a significant amount of time. The fact that it's going to take you 10 years is potentially irrelevant to me. You put yourself in a situation by violating the code right from the start and not addressing that, apparently not planning for the growth of the business. And you got yourself, I think we're in a position where we're willing to give you some additional time to put a plan together, whether it means constructing a new facility, or, working with the city of Amboy. But quite honestly, I think to expect us to allow you to continue to violate the zoning for that property for another 10 years is a little bit absurd. My own feeling, if it was a progressive plan, maybe we'd go out 5 years, but my real purpose is that we moved and being able to document progress on that would probably be down in the 3-year range. I think 5 years would be absolutely more than generous, but I know that things take time. It's not going to be done in 6 months, and probably not in 1 year, and 4 year review in terms of the other thing that complicates your issue is the cost of materials at this point. This is happening in a pretty atrocious time from that standpoint. But the other thing is you put yourself in this position because you violated the zoning and you violated it for several years. I think that Ms. Duffy has talked to you about a variety of things for the last couple of years. And, so right now, my position is we've already given you a couple of years, 2 to 3 years right now to try and get your act together, to try and get some things resolved. And I'm still willing to give you maybe 90, maybe 120 days to try and put some definable time, time sensitive or time, I'm not looking for some benchmarks going forward. But to think that 10 years would be even halfway reasonable is absurd. My choice would be if you can't put a reasonable plan together, we enforce a cease and desist, and you can keep those buildings up as long as you're not violating the zoning. And if that isn't the case, then you take the buildings down as well and move them someplace else. But I think you put yourself in this position, and I don't have much tolerance for going too much farther out.
Any other comments?
So, have you looked around Sublette? Industrial zoning in Sublette that you could,
Tried to acquire some fields down there that are close to or on Highway 52 to see that they would be, meet the criteria for zoning changes. Not many people want to let off of the farm ground down there, especially current pricing. Hinkle Seeds, I come to find out was up for sale. And I've talked with Tom Meinhardt. I've been in his facility. It's not at all set up for us, and most of the value he's putting in is in the grain operation, which I think he has somebody, I just found this out actually yesterday, somebody else is looking at it for the grain facility. But yeah, I mean, he wants, I think it's either $750 or $1 million for it, and those buildings wouldn't do me a whole lot of good for their layout. It's a very narrow, small property. So kind of makes it's hard to spend that kind of money and then start almost at zero.
the Amboy thing would just be great if it wasn't so complicated.
Yeah, I like the location. I have a place in my heart for these old buildings, or even though I sell brand new buildings, but everybody wants to tear down something old. I could see bringing it back to have its former glory and actually making that part of the town look a lot better. The city was all over that. They said it's been an eyesore. You have vandals breaking in there, breaking out windows, spray painting on the walls. So that they were liking every part of it. The neighbors seemed excited about not having to look at that anymore. I think this is a very doable plan. It just can't snap my fingers and make it happen that quickly. There's just so many moving pieces, and I've been working on this since day one that we left. I've taken this 100% seriously and devoted every free minute I possibly can. I have every network person that I possibly can, and trying to, our end game is to move. I just need time to do that. And
So how would you suggest we proceed?
well, I was answering a question that Courtney asked me, and I don't have a crystal ball. I know that nobody's mentioned the business amnesty program, and I don't know if that will ever gain traction, and it may be totally irrelevant for my situation because of the time frame that we're under. I just want to make sure that everybody's maybe aware of we're going to have 3,000 more cases of this besides just the best enterprises going by the statistics. And so, I don't know. I think it was Mr. Forrester brought up at the last meeting, special use was brought up, and they said that my business maybe wouldn't pertain to a special use, but I think you brought up something about, the nice thing about special use was there can be limitations as far as time frame on them. Glenn, I believe you suggested something about, I don't think you call it a progress, but like milestones, or, if we have, the 10 years I threw out there was from literally 100% completion. you know, if we're talking about milestones, so maybe there's a 4 or 5 year permit issued, and at the end of that, we check and see how far. I'm going to work on this from day one. I'm not going to risk losing what took me my entire life to build by simply saying, okay, they gave me the special use permit, so now I can just forget about that for 5 more years. Realistically, the amount of work that's involved in this is several years, and that's from when I break ground, and it'll probably be a year before I can even begin to break ground. I'm not denying that we're a commercial or industrial business in an Ag 1 area. My point is that we've been commercial from day one and never intentionally broke any zoning ordinance or abide, you know, the minute I went in to visit Chris Engel, we had a plan to build a post frame house with a lawn care business, landscape, tree work, and other things attached to it. That is exactly what we did. And if you look at the Lee County Code that pertains to, I believe it's owner occupied exemption or something to do with businesses that work from their home, most businesses don't meet that criteria. You can't have any employees, you can't manufacture anything. There's a whole laundry list of things you can't be. So I'm not saying we're not commercial. I'm just saying we've been commercial for 22 years. So I realize now things are different than they were before, and I'm not making any excuses. I'm just saying I'm not dodging the system or playing, you know, this is where we are. I want to rectify it. You guys are trying to work with me, which is appreciated.
I think you're missing the point though, and you just admitted it, and we talked about it in the last meeting. You started out in the lawn care, the landscaping, and those were acceptable within what you were doing. You switched into the construction and manufacturing of the metal buildings or the siding and the roofing or whatever the total package encompasses. But when you went into that manufacturing side, now you're in violation. When you started out and when you talked to Chris, you were not in violation. You shifted your own business by your own admission back in 2008, 2009, and that's where the violation came in. So, you know, there's a difference between what you had as your stated intent when you first started establishing that business and operating that business, and what's happened since you started building some additional buildings and expanding the type of business that you went into, which by your own admission at the last meeting was in about 2008, 2009. You said 2008 was when things got bad, and I think 2009 you started looking at other options or going into other aspects at that time. So we're talking, you know, right now of what, pushing on 12 years?
It was the end of 2011 when we shifted.
Finally got it, okay, by the time you got into it, okay, so 10 years.
Yeah, understandable. But back to my point of, if I had employees, we still weren't technically a owner. I didn't fall within that exemption that was there. So I don't want to look back. I just want to resolve this. So I realize where we are is where we are. So as far as Mr. Pratt's question, I don't have the answer. I guess what I'm asking for is as much time as possible to try and relocate, because this is not like a plumbing business that can pack up their tools and go in a van and go out on the job. You know, this is a little bit of a different type of situation.
I guess what I was hoping for out of this tonight was that you had a plan and a timeline of how you were going to accomplish it.
Yep.
And I don't think we've gotten that tonight, right? I mean, because you don't know where you're going or anything. We were hoping you had that resolved, that we could say, well, that's a great idea. We'll give you time. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, believe me, I wish it was that easy. There would be a lot
Yeah.
less sleepless nights and you know, you would think, I mean, a prime example, that field there. That field, he put the price per acre at double the going rate. And I was going to bite the bullet and pay for that, double what it was worth to resolve this. And then the deal still fell through. So like,
Well,
it's not the lack of trying.
so then us as a board, we gotta decide what we wanna, I mean, do we give him another 60 days to try and come up with a plan, or do we, you know, what's our options here? I mean, you know,
I'll ask a different question. Is your plans today to go after the property in the city of Amboy?
Yes, multiple properties, that's right.
The multiple properties?
That's right.
And your comments were that it may take a year to do that, to get through all of the government take.
I believe, yeah, I would say that, or at least a better part of the remaining of this year, for sure.
Okay.
The private individuals, I think, will be faster than the city will be. Those seem a little bit more straightforward, but I'm finding, we're dealing with a lot of people, and then I'm sure they're gonna get legal counsel, and that will probably drag the process out for the individual that we're dealing with.
If you were through the red tape of the city, if you were through the red tape of the city, how long do you think it would take to renovate the buildings and then move in?
So we're gonna start on day one with renovation, tree removal, filling in the floodplains, trying to get the proper permitting for highway access. I'm gonna throw every resource that I have in it. Realistically, renovating that building is a couple of year process, but I don't need all of that right away to do our other. Building a new plant from scratch, that's a year plus. When you're talking about breaking, you've been through it, you kind of know how that works, especially when you're dealing with inspections and you know, things of that nature. So the plant manufacturing alone is a year plus. Renovating the building is a couple of years. Doing the amount of 35,000 cubic yards and thousands of trees and getting the permit, like that work is a year. You know, that's where, you know, I know 10 years, when you think about it, 10 years sounds crazy. I know it does, but a year flies by like this, and not only, it's not like I can do everything at once, you know, I gotta start with the trees. Well, first I gotta get all the red tape out of the way, then I gotta start with the trees, and then we gotta work on fill dirt, and you know, so I would hope that I could have everything as fast as I possibly could. You're asking how long? Let's say it took a year to get the paperwork, right? And then it took a year to develop the, it's probably about 4+ acres there that have to be filled in, compacted, tree removal, things like that. The building, we can start the first year, after the closing, we can start renovating that. I don't need 100% of that, but if we can work on that during, we can maybe work on the plan at the same time. I don't know. I'm fearful to throw out any number and then it come back to me that, hey, you said this amount of years, you know, it's just so many moving parts.
I guess that's the biggest issue. You know, we're aware of the moving parts, and that's why we wanted something relatively specific. Obviously, this is, and there's, you know, with the letter from the city of Amboy, there is some, you know, movement there, and there's some agreement there, and some stuff has to be done. So that's a positive. I'm not sure what type of time frame, you know, my inclination is to give you, and just pulling a number right now, it seems fairly long to me because of how long this is dragging out. 90 days to try and legitimately put a plan together with steps and stages and what needs to be done, how you're gonna do it, and you've already made some suggestions in terms of time frame, in terms of working with the city of Amboy. Maybe you need to sit down and talk to the mayor or other parties through the municipality about what the time frame of getting some of this other stuff taken care of is. But, I'd like to see a plan that has some legitimate benchmarks that we can say, whether it's Dee going out to examine, whether it's Dee communicating with the mayor of Amboy, some way of documenting that you're making the progress, and also that if it's not where it was expected to be able to get a response from you as to why. Now, if you order materials and there's a backlog on materials for 90 days, that's not something that's in your control, and we can understand you not making that benchmark. But we've got to have something definable to be able to allow this to go forward, and not to just say, yeah, this ain't going anyplace, and this property is going to continue to be I-1, and we need to pull the plug. We need to decide to have a cease and desist order put in place, or tear down the buildings or whatever. I'm at this point, I'm thinking these cease and desist, but the fact is we've got to get something definable from you. And I'm going to reiterate, the 10 years is too long, whether it's 3 years or 5 years. I can work with something like that if I've got some reasonable benchmarks to look at. I think Bruce is kind of acknowledging in his question that, if it's going to take you a year to work through with the city of Amboy, then we can take that into consideration. But we need to know the other pieces and how that's going to fit together, or we're just shooting in the dark, and so are you.
Yeah.
And I have no intentions with this level of violation on the zoning. It's been going so long to keep going. There was some calculations done. If you were to pay the penalty on the zoning violations, you'd probably be looking at somewhere in the $15–16 million range. Now, I even did in discussion with Gis some compromise that we're looking at that, and there probably needs to be some penalty in there, but we would look at something like $1 a year for $1,000 a year for each building, or the parts thereof that are potentially in violation. It's just a rough estimate, but you're talking about amnesty or consideration. That still gets you about $86,000. Plus the simple part that we talked about amnesty on with building permits, that's a simple $10,000 for those violations. But you potentially, if you were to hold to the code and deal with the maximum amount of allowable in the code, you'd be looking at close to $16 million for your violations. Maybe DeKalb's got it right. It's easy to just tear down the buildings and we forget about that, but that doesn't do you any good. And it doesn't give you any options. So trying to find some sort of compromise, you have to realize that you've had some significant violations, and we have to see some definable way out of this situation, and not to just leave that property, as an industrial zone.
If I might suggest something, I would request that we have 120 days to sit down with the city of Amboy to develop a timeline and what they reasonably think they can achieve, and then what we can achieve to lock in this old milk plant property.
I'd like to keep it at 90, but I could swallow 120.
What's that make it? June, July, August, September, October meeting?
Yeah.
I had 120 written down on my paper.
Okay.
So September meeting.
Yeah.
Is the milk plant privately owned or city?
No, that's privately owned along with the two commercial lots adjoining it.
And the milk plant's like 4 acres or something.
No, the milk plant plus the two other parcels is 3.83. And there's another private individual with a 0.78. The city part of theirs is 1.97 and another 1.65.
Is there more buildings to be torn down on these other lots?
Yeah, potentially. There is only one building on the city property that I understand to be really in bad shape. So I haven't been in it many years. So there's a potential that one building has to be removed there as well.
What's the acreage of your current facility? That basically just encompasses the buildings in question and business.
Yeah, so right now we probably have 2 plus, well, we just purchased another parcel of, I believe, about 1.3 behind. So we're probably in the 7-acre range. I have to look it up to be certain on that, but we're around maybe 7 acres.
Okay. So the 3.8 and a couple of city that are 1 plus each, even without that private individual, you possibly, unless it's right in the middle of things.
Yeah, boy, you hit that on the head. And unfortunately, it kind of is in the middle, but there's ways to work around it. It's not a deal breaker as far as the other private individual, and they're proving to be the hardest one to potentially acquire. So it'd be helpful, but that may not come to fruition. You had mentioned something about some benchmarks, and I know we're going to have 120 days to put together a plan with the city, and hopefully within less than 120 days, they have more information to give to us. I realistically think that we can have a benchmark schedule for you. I can't lay it out A, B, C, D right now, but I think after we get more information from them and get some sort of game plan from them, and in 120 days, I'm going to know about the other 4 parcels within 120 days, whether those are locked up or whether or not some of those have fallen through. I'm going to know more about the floodplain permit process as well within 90 to 120 days. So we will have a lot more information moving forward, and I think we can outline some realistic benchmarks to try and achieve.
This may sound a little bit on the personal side, but I think it's a factor, and if you can't answer it, that's fine. But consider it. Have you talked to your banker about how you're going to finance the work that needs to be done?
Yeah, so nobody even addressed that. I'm glad that you did, because I am a small business, and I'm not made of money, and it's taken every penny I've ever earned to get to where we are now. So the thought of basically starting from zero again at my age and in this current economic climate is honestly very scary. But it's either we figure out how to do that, or we hang it up, right? I got 2 choices, right?
Yep.
So how I'm going to finance that, I don't know. This project here, you got $500,000 moving that dirt. Okay, this is a $2.5 million project. I don't have that kind of cash laying around, and we're going to do as much work as we can ourselves to try and help with those costs. And I'm going to try to spread it out as long as we reasonably can, as far as meeting the benchmarks. But still, I don't have 10 people I can throw at this project all day, every day. So to answer your question, I have not talked to a banker because there's not a lot to really get into at this point.
Okay. Well, But you probably ought to have them, I mean, and I know especially coming into this meeting, that you probably have ahead of time. Or you're still putting some things together. But as you go through this process, I would strongly recommend that you're gonna have to look at the cost of your buildings. You're gonna have to look at the potential value of that property and what you're working out with the city. There may be some equity there, there may be somebody, you know, you're maybe willing to work with you and or the city, but if you don't, you know, as you said, you're a small business, if you don't have the financial capacity, then all the benchmarks in the world and all the negotiations with the city
Yeah.
are worthless.
Well, and here's the other part. So the city of Amboy has agreed to some of these properties, but they can't even tell me what they want for them because they have to go through their due diligence. And either one, it's open for public bid, or two, they have it appraised and it has to meet 80% of appraised value. So is that going to appraise really low because it's floodplain and it's in bad shape, or with current real estate prices, is it going to appraise through the roof? You know, so I don't even know where I'm starting yet, and I imagine it's going to take a little while to get to the appraisal part of this.
Yeah, maybe not, maybe that's something that has to be done or negotiated or whatever with the city of Amboy fairly quickly on the front side.
Well, they're moving on. They're moving forward with.
I'm just saying that, you know, that let's hope that if these negotiations with the city are serious, that can be addressed sooner rather than later, because
Right.
that's a key, you know, that's gonna be a key to whatever financing you need. That, you know, so that's gonna be a key to what your ability to get in there is. And I think that, you know, again, within that 120 days, these are pieces you gotta be putting together, and some of the things you've gotta draw into this plan, because they're gonna have to be part of that benchmark. Because as you said, you're a small business, you can't afford it out of pocket, so somebody else is gonna have to be in there helping you, and you need to get them on your team on the front side.
Before we go any further, is there any comments from anybody in the audience on this particular subject? If not, we're not gonna come to any conclusion tonight other than to give Mr. Zelhofer some time. So if you want to make a motion to give him make a motion to give him 90 or 120 days to come back.
I make a motion, we give them 120 days, which puts it at the September meeting. So that you'll have a plan at the September meeting. You know, there's two things I want to have in the record though, is that I don't want to state it that the board is pushing you into the Amboy deal. You know, we don't want to direct your business. And me, I'm worried about this. You know, we're forcing you to do a deal with Amboy. I don't want that I want to make sure that's stated that we're not doing that. And the other thing I want to state is that you have to stop any expansion where you're at now. And you just mentioned you bought some acreage and stuff. That, you know, that has to be.
Can I address that real quick? So the reason we bought that is we were working with Ms. Duffy to take care of part of the violations at that property. So we bought more acres on that property. The clarification on the buildings was because the picture, when you were asking me the question, the picture was 2 years old. And so when you said, are you going to do anything different? Or I don't remember how you worded it, something along the lines. I said, well, no, our plans aren't really to do anything different other than maybe add some gravel in the new part that was bought. But then it occurred to me later, well, geez, if he's looking at that picture and then he looks at a picture that's current, it's going to look totally different. So I wanted to make sure that was clear that, you know, that we're on the same page about that.
Okay. So my motion is that we give him 120 days to come back with the plan. September meeting.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Zelhofer, just talking about this in the whole situation, these parcels looking at, do they need zoning, or are they in the city, or are they commercial already? Or is it industrial?
So the privately owned lots, most of them are already commercial or industrial. The city property, they said they would rezone to whatever zoning that I needed. The single owner one, I'm not sure. It should be residential, but they said it appears to be commercial, so I'm not sure about that.
I just wondered if that was gonna delay anything too.
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay.
I do have one other thing. We're discussing this, and I don't know, it's been brought up, you asked how many acres, and we talked about like a 2-acre lease. Well, the other property I lease, I got my building, it's our family land. That was going to be, because it was in, I believe, he said because it was in a different township, we were gonna do it on a separate petition. So my question is, since it's one and the same, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to file for that petition when from what I'm understanding, the board is not going to grant special use. Can we postpone filing for that special use at 1760, which is right across the street, until the evaluation, the updated 120 days? Because aren't we going to be in the same boat if I file for that separate petition next month?
We're going to turn around and look over.
I think right now we've got a motion on the floor, so we probably ought to avoid getting into that side of the discussion. We can address that after the fact.
Any more discussion on the 120-day motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We will see that in 120 days.
Thank you.
Second portion of the old business is Brian Flores requesting. Who's that? Brian Flores requesting an extension on building permit number 14846. I think we swear you in.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give. You just sign that. You need that.
I guess so.
State your name to the board and tell us what's going on.
Brian Flores. I'm here to give an update on house plans. I've got these 4 copies here. Sorry, I didn't grab one for everybody, but I passed them around. I think it was last April or March, the last time we met. Letter in the mail stated that I needed to have foundation completed by, I believe it was April 1st or April 30th, one or the other. And that is actually the footings and the foundation were poured about the 3rd week of April. So that is completed at this time. I had the state building inspector out to approve some plumbing in the floor, which he did that this Wednesday. So they're going to continue with pouring the floor of the foundation this week. Building package I have signed off on, and that is ordered. That should be coming in either the beginning of July or mid-July. They're waiting on windows, which they said was gonna take 12 weeks. But that company will come in and basically be in and out in a week or two. It'll be completely shelled up, wrapped, windows in, roof sheeted, and then I can take over from that point. So I'm not far off pace here, just about a month behind from weather and clearing a lot of trees. I was still clearing trees in March. I drew my own plans, which was changed about 5 times. That I'm going through a builder, and then he has to transfer it onto this Amwood company, so it took about 6 weeks in between all those changes. Electric took a while to get to the property. I dealt with that over the summer. I had to get a grant of easement from the Saddle Club. They put 5 poles in, and they actually had 2 of them too close to the road, so those had to be moved. And otherwise, I had all my permits paid for by the end of April last year. So that's kind of where I'm at. Anybody has any questions?
What's your situation on the well? You have a well?
Yeah, sorry, I had that wrote down here too. The well was dug last fall, so that is in the ground.
Still gotta do septic after the house is done.
Yep. That's been tested and all that, oh yeah.
Right, that's all. You've got to talk to the line.
Well, basically, you've made significant progress towards it.
Yeah, the last month for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And
There's
we all understand supply chain problems right now.
Yeah, I definitely can't give a completion date. There's just so many variables, you know. There's gonna be materials that hold me up, but there's always work that can be done still.
And Brian also faced COVID last year with everybody else.
Yeah. Still has a trickle effect for sure.
So do we need a formal extension, or do you just wanted an update? That's indeed.
We spoke to comments on you or you didn't.
Does it need it? That's the question.
So we need to give them the extension.
It needs an extension.
How long do you propose to do the extension?
For the house completion,
Yeah.
I would think, probably like June of next year. I would hope, or July of next year.
Is that the, why are you saying that long? What would keep you from finishing it within that year?
Well, because, I mean, I work 50 hours a week, and I'm gonna have to do a lot of this work myself after hours to keep my cost where it was projected a year ago. So that's part of it.
Are you planning to move into it as you're completing it?
Maybe, I mean, once it's moved in, ready, yeah, I don't need all the trim finished and that type of stuff. I'll definitely put my house that I'm in now up for sale when I get close.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want 2 finished houses, you know what I mean? I'm hoping to be able to sell my house I'm in now.
Right. Once again, do we want to give he says a year, do we want to give a partial and then get a progress program going along?
You're okay with D, your position on the timeframe?
I'm fine with it.
She's fine with a year?
I make a motion to give them a year extension. I don't know what the beginning date is. What's the beginning date, Dave? Is it tonight? or-
Tonight.
Okay. A year from tonight, so it'll be next April or May of 2022. We're gonna make extension to May of 2022.
Okay, I just got a real quick question, because I'm reading the letter here I got from last year. It says, if permit needs to be extended, he shall apply for a new permit for the residents, and that shall be completed by the 3rd year. Is that backwards, or?
Do that again.
Says if permit needs to be extended, he shall apply for a new permit for the residents, and that shall be completed by the 3rd year.
Okay, so the work needs to be completed within 3 years, but at this point, you just need to get the new permit. We need to provide an extension for the new permit. Is that what we're looking at, Dee?
It needs to be extended, he shall apply for a new permit for the resident, and that should be completed by the 3rd year, so that would be 2023.
Well, the 3rd year from the initial permit, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not giving him a year extension. We're essentially giving him a 2-year extension.
Well, we're giving him extension under the new permit to complete it by the end of the term, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm just literally like 3 weeks off here on the foundation, or won't even be here, I guess,
Okay.
if I'm reading this correctly. It says, building should be.
So we really don't need to give him anything. And he's fulfilled the obligation by coming here, right? So he's got till 23, let's let it go.
He just needs to apply for a new permit for that, to cover that period.
Right, because the building permit is only for 1 year. Good for 1 year.
Okay, so the permit's good for 1 year. But he's still gotta have it. But we put it out to 2023 for the completion.
That's what you're motion.
Well, I'm trying to clarify the letter that's been provided to it.
Yeah, there's just about a paragraph there.
This is your motion.
Oh, rather than 3 years. So it says the residential building shall begin construction within 1 year. So you're exceeding right now, the issue is that you just passed the 1 year on beginning construction, right?
Yes.
Rather than the 3 years, which would have normally been allowed under the original if you hadn't already had the violation. Within 30 days of today's date, the petitioner shall pay for permits fees. Foundation to be completed with 1 year. If permit needs to be extended, he shall apply for a new permit for the residents, and that shall be completed by the 3rd year. I'm not even sure about the term of that permit. Dee, are you requiring him to apply for a new permit?
He's already paid the late fee on the first.
Okay.
So I'm good with it.
So
Continue.
I don't think we need to do anything.
I think we just need to accept his explanation
Right,
for
yeah.
why
Yeah,
why he's beyond his term.
go back and get a bill.
There's no going backwards now. We will.
Okay,
You got 2 more years, right?
yeah,
It'll be good.
it'll be good. So it's really just the 1 year was passed, but we had the foundation completed, and that's why he's in the report. We don't really need an extension on it. Okay, just clarification. Thank you for bringing that point up.
Yep, no problem.
Brian, how much square feet is this?
Should be like 2150, right on there. Can't wait.
So we're good where we are.
I believe so. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the update. Well, now we're on to new business. New business is petition 21-G-1561. Petitioner is AOL LLC, in the 18 part of the permanent parcel 19-22-05-005. Somewhat township and constructing self-storage facility. Good evening. Where are you at?
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth.
I do.
I need you to sign this.
I'll come to you.
We'll get it over to you.
Okay.
After you sign that, would you state your name to the board? Tell us about it.
My name is Tim Dean, I'm from Michelle. I've been a real estate worker for a little over 15 years. We've diversified our business to include storage units for home facilities, and we built about 3 facilities, we own 5. Ranges kind of in a 30-mile radius from Rochelle. We look for areas where the existing storage is has a high level of occupancy, and also where we think there could be good demand for new units. We have a facility in Kirkland and Byron. They both benefit from destinations to the Rock River. My wife's family is from Amboy, so I spent some time down in this area, so I know of the recreational facilities that are around. And I think over the last generation, as time's gone on, people have more and more needs for storage space. If you think about the evolution of garages, many people probably had a 1-car garage at one time, and now there's a lot of places that have 3-car garages and still don't have everything inside. So these facilities tend to be a good addition for people. Well, personally, we also see they kind of serve also as business incubators. A lot of businesses start out of people's backyards or garages, and this is where contractors and lots of different kind of people move into before they are ready for bigger facilities. So the facility, or the property that we have an option to purchase is at the corner of Greenwing Road and Route 52. It is, has visibility on 52, but the access is not on 52. We were looking for a place that was a big bonus because I don't care to deal with IDOT any more than I have to, regulation and those kind of things. So this has visibility, you get that benefit, but we don't have to have access issues. There's a certain bit of safety element to that too, because you don't have new entrance on and off. When I look at this corridor in general, a lot of areas have a lot of agriculture, production agriculture, but this is an area up and down 52 between Illinois and Sublette. There's various agribusinesses, non-agribusinesses, obviously golf course across the street. So we felt like it was a area that could serve two communities, Sublette and Illinois, also serve recreation. Many people that maybe have a storage unit in somewhere else, Collar counties where they come from, this is a chance to store their stuff closer to here, expands the tax base, those kind of things. So we agreed to buy 5 acres. It's an odd-shaped parcel. I didn't think it's a big loss from a farming standpoint. It's kind of looks to me like a parcel that no one would want to plant. It is also something that has very little effect on any downfield parcels. Our boundary on one side is a waterway, so we feel comfortable that we've designed a plan where all the water will flow to that waterway. We've worked with the existing owner to maintain a drainage easement for existing tiles, so we won't have any effect on the properties that drain through it. So there will be rebuilding phases. We only like to build about as much as we can support in terms of 18, 24 months occupancy, because we don't want to be building stuff every year, but at the same time, we don't want to have 7 years worth of buildings to try and fill up and let the bank win from that kind of standpoint. So in this case, we would propose to build the east half or the right-hand half. If you're looking at it, there would be 3 buildings. There would be our buildings have evolved over time. When we first built the facility, they had gravel parking lots, no security. As time's gone on, the pictures I submitted are the ones that we intend to follow that kind of model. They're accented with a little bit of brick. They're not tall buildings. They're half the size of some of the implement dealerships up and down that road. They're only about 9 feet to the east. So you're talking about low buildings. We use the excess material and make natural fencing on the public side, so we're not putting up big fencing. They don't look institutional. And then we draw the traffic back to the entrance. It's shut off at nighttime. No reason for anybody, whether they're tenants or not tenants, to be there. Be curious. The particular facility that we showed is in Sycamore. We've been there open for 2.5 years. We have had 0 criminal complaints, whether it's in a unit or just general disturbances. There would be 0 lots, or I'm sorry, 0 lights facing Greenwing Road, except where the buildings are closer to 52. When they run north-south, all those lights would be on the side. There'll also be motion sensors, so when they're off at nighttime, the place will kind of go to sleep. Won't say they won't monitor or doesn't plan, but trying to be a good neighbor. And one of those things, in the old days, they used to think when you first started that you needed to be in a highly visible area, so you're top of mind with people. Nowadays, people don't come very often. They also stay a long time, or 3 years. So I thought this is the lowest impact development you can have. So in saying that, we think it'll be a place with very low traffic and all those kind of things. We've also, we do not use a small silver land that's on the corner. That parcel is not part of it. So the entrance to this is past the house that's there. If you look at the one-way drawing that's black and white, you can actually see it shows the offset of our entrances. I like that because if there is any traffic or any headlights, it won't be shining into a house. Our closest unit will be about estimated about 200 feet from that residence. It's about 2/3 of a football field, so I don't think we'll have any adverse impact. Along with that, I would point out that we have these are not tall doors, and the pavement's not made for heavy vehicles. So this is not somewhere that's going to have semi-type deliveries. This is going to be stuff that comes in on trailers behind vehicles, or in some cases, probably on its own wheels and being picked up from there. Wendler's has done our engineering work. We have it all done. So they've done the retention. We want to pick a company that is, local, familiar with the county code. Hopefully they have been able to meet or exceed that. We'll find that out when we go through the permitting so that you're not having any kind of adverse impact on anybody in any direction. So, there's no impact on, there's no sewer, there's no water. We do have, in the last couple of years, we've been able to hire a full-time manager that works for us. He came to us from a maintenance background and he was a lawn care business. So he would mow the facility. I like that because then we're there at least weekly, taking care of it, keeping eyes on it, making sure that it's cleaned up, and also looking for beer.
How many storage units are you actually going to have in this facility?
Well, we're going to have, in the first phase, we're going to have 130. In the second phase, we're going to have about 160 more. But I would point out that the number is higher than on both ends of each building. We're going to have small units. We think that there will be more demand for smaller units, but that where there would be 2, that makes it 12. So it kind of raises the number of them. If that makes any sense.
How large is a small unit?
Those end units would be 5 by 10. And then the buildings would all be 30 feet wide. So they'd be 10 and 20 on the other side. One thing we found with the lumps of growing is that we don't put all the interior walls in because then you're just moving them if you pick the wrong number of demand. So, but the buildings will be 30 feet wide. The driveways will be 30 feet wide, which is, wider than 2 drive lanes of a road. But it's, so there's between 20, it could be as much as 30 feet if they had a door on each side. Or commonly the mix is 10 by 10, 10 by 15, 10 by 20.
What's allowed to be stored in?
Household type stuff. You can have motorized vehicles. They have no power in them. There's no lights inside of them. So there's no way to turn them into a hobby shop or a weekend hideout, kind of things. So we most commonly get household items and or recreational type vehicles that are, we have actually a contractor that I work with as a weekend place in Woodhaven, and he's suggests this as a good idea. For example, he's an electrician, he'd like to have a place for, miscellaneous parts and that kind of stuff, because he does nights at his main job on weekends and stuff, and he just couldn't find a place to store those kind of things. But his idea was we'd have electricity in there, but that's just something I don't want to get into because it's more level of management and risk in terms of what could go on there. And this is not supposed to be a small engine shop. It's supposed to be okay. Yeah, so one of the facilities we built is, I can literally see it out the back door of my house. I live on, in the neighborhood, on the other side of the road's a cornfield on the edge of Rochelle, and I can see it. And if I were to sit down for an hour-long TV show in the afternoon or in the evening, you might see one vehicle and just lightly travel.
Tim, do you know who your neighbor is that's got the house there? They've been notified.
I know him by name only. There was actually there's a relationship between the landlord that I'm working with and him. They solicited to see if he wanted to include that acreage. He chose not to, but I know he's been notified. We had, I think there were 12 adjoining tax parcels. He was maybe 5 of them. Signed a rate receipt for all of them, so it was sufficient notification.
So you mentioned fence. On this picture, where's the fence? Is it all the way around the perimeter or is it just around the building?
It would be berming as a replacement for fencing. So the excess topsoil that scrapes off the main area would be 4 or 5 feet around the road frontage side, the 2 sides of the road frontage. So if you call the property a triangle, it'd be like on the west and the south. So if you want to leave the facility and not get back to the main gate, you got to go over a berm or out the bottom. I don't know exactly how that works. There'll be no berm on the drainage side because it all sheet drains from the Greenway Road down to the waterway. So it'll be 2 sides of berm, and then it's gated like a airport parking garage. Pull up to it, enter your personalized code on the way in, snap your picture, and then on the way out. So if there is any kind of theft, we keep 30 days of camera data. So it's kind of like saying it's on the tenant's list to be there that often if there wasn't something wrong.
So no fence and no perimeter lighting.
No fence, no perimeter lighting. There would be wall pack lighting. If you look at the picture that's the top of the peak, that's what the example of the light is. And I think that in a 220-foot building, there's maybe 4 of those in the ironway. So, and the reason I say that is this building will have units on that side, but there'd be a few there. But these buildings that are perpendicular to the road won't have lights on those sides. They'd be here on the inside. So the only place there'd be any kind of lighting is on this side of our drive, and that house is down here.
So the special use is what he's asking for, correct? Special use in ag. This is ag zone, right? So this is a special use in ag. Is that correct?
Right.
I didn't know that this was an option. It is. Special use for storage buildings in ag. You're comfortable with that? You understand what special use means, I'm sure.
My description would be no need zoning change. It's an allowable use with board approval without a change the zoning to a different class.
Plus, if you go to sell the building, you may have to come back for zoning again. The new owner may have to have rezoning done.
The special use doesn't go to the next one?
Not my understanding. It's your special use, right? It's not the property's special use.
It was on, that they're going to go with.
That's the reason I want to make sure you understand that. If you go to sell this property someday, there's a zoning process involved.
I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah, so if Joe Smith buys it from you, the new zoning will be a Joe Smith thing.
I did not know that.
If it's already there, it's probably not a hard thing for them to do.
I just have to know.
Because it's there, but special uses are given to the person and that person only, and then it goes away.
I would take that opportunity to say that, maybe picked up on, but these are properties that we care to own and operate for the foreseeable future. So this is not something that, somebody else will be sitting here in 2 years. So this is a long-term strategy from my standpoint, but I thank you for the clarification.
But it might also determine how you want to title this, is your name individually or an LLC or depending on, how your family structure stuff is like for settled too.
Tim, are you going to have any outdoor storage? Are you planning any outdoor storage?
I'm not planning any outdoor storage, and I would say that I'm not planning it from an integral standpoint, and I'm not planning it from a long-term standpoint, mainly because I think that gets into a different level of aesthetics, or a lower level of aesthetics is a better way to put it.
I would concur.
Sometimes people do it in the middle where they're, but I just don't care to do that part because it's the one place that we have it. Might be a contributing reason to the gray area. Yeah, it's just not worth it.
Before we go any further, is there anybody in the audience who has any comments on this particular petition?
So does the city of Sublette weigh in on this?
Yeah, well, you have someone on Zoom.
Okay.
He hasn't indicated. Do you want me to unmute him?
Yeah, DM here.
Would you state your name, please?
My name is Brandon Miller, and my wife and I are the ones that built the house across the street. It would be on Gene Leffelman's farm. That'd be my wife's grandfather. He's deceased within the last month, so that's obviously that's not an option to talk with him. But we live in the house across the street. We built that home. For me, I don't know, do you guys have the letter from Sublette?
I haven't introduced that yet.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, no problem. I'm just sitting listening. I'm actually out of state, so I was just trying to make sure you got everything there. So.
Would you let us know about that?
First of all, the National Resources report was prepared in March. The report concluded that there's no identifiable wetlands on the 5-acre parcel. Approximately 100% of this parcel is composed of prime farm soils. The report suggests the encouragement to use on-site detention, stormwater runoff, and the soil survey indicates that 84% of the parcel has a moderate to high potential for erosion. And this is scored at 219. Lee County Highway engineer remarked that any issues concerning drainage on the property would be addressed through the Lee County stormwater ordinance and required drainage permits. In your files, a copy of the Lee County comprehensive plan highlighting Sublette land use plan that states that the Sublette land business is along the north side of US Route 52 from the village of Sublette in north of County Road. The Sublette Planning Commission met in March to review this petition and felt that the petitioner's request does not fit the village's comprehensive plan. The Sublette Village Board met later in April where the petitioner presented his request. The Select Board motioned on the recommendation to deny the zoning change because it did not fit the land use in their comprehensive plan. Also, a citizen's petition was received by the zoning office in March, where many citizens signed the petition to deny the rezoning for a self-storage facility at this location, but I believe only 3 of the signatures were adjacent homeowners.
How far is this from Sublette then?
Approximately, could I answer? Approximately 1.4 miles. And I would point out that I think it's a state law that a village has planning control within 1.5 miles. But if there was some common sense applied to that, I would think that I respect that process, but being a mile and a half from Elgin is obviously significantly different from being a mile and a half from Sublette. The Sublette comprehensive plan is dated 2005, and I think since 2005, there hasn't been an expansion of their corporate boundaries, but at the same time, I think there's been at least 1 or 2 more industrial in nature type buildings that were put up on similar Route 52 small business frontage. There's a common substation. There's a wind tower support structure that's very similar. I guess I would say that's when I went to Sublette, it was a short meeting, not many questions, but we tried to convey the same information I conveyed here, and just didn't seem like there was much desire for consideration. You know, one thing about facilities like this, I think what they do for the greater areas that they're located in, say, provide an element of storage. People can reclaim their garages. You know, the property that's diagonal to me, from me across the intersection, there's a gentleman with 7 semi-containers right on 52 and Greenwing Road. So, you know, there's some of that goes on, that the stuff exists. There's back orders at every sports store. My own parents have never owned any form of an altering vehicle, and at the young age of 73, they bought a golf cart yesterday. So, and I picked it up at the similar facility just like this, right outside of Yogi Bear's. And despite multiple new buildings, there's, I would say, stuff all over. I mean, this is somewhat of a fact of just the chosen recreational habits of our areas, especially in places like this where there's multiple recreation facilities. We know that Hills is within eye shot to the north, but even to the west, other places like that. So.
So who would get the tax base from this? Surely there's a tax increase. Who receives that?
I think it's in the Inwood School District, and then it's
Sublette doesn't get any more tax.
Well, it's outside the boundaries, so Sublette proper doesn't get the tax, but the township that Sublette is in gets the tax. I'd point out that at full occupancy, this property probably has, based on our other facilities, it probably has a $30,000 real estate tax bill without each facility we have, they either get a month or 2 months total rent for these facilities. So they're properties that are taxed very well relative to the modestness of them, in my personal opinion.
That's disappointing, that's a blood. Count you down.
Well, I didn't even, I thank Dee for inviting me to the second meeting, otherwise it would happen without my knowing it. They had the first, I didn't get a chance to speak at the first hearing. And one of the gentlemen on the zoning committee in the first hearing, I think is, owns the storage facility in Sublette, so. But I called around and did market research when we did, looked around, and, every facility, I would say there's 5 facilities. One of them that answered the phone had a waiting list. The 2 others never returned my call, which is an indication that they just don't bother with customer service because they don't have availability. And another one was going to call me back when he got home and could tell me prices, and he didn't. So there's, if there isn't more demand for these, there's at least the ones that are there are very full. And I would assume that there are a great number of people that haul stuff back to other areas and store it there because of that.
Well, we're not questioning your business viability, you know, and that really shouldn't come into our decision, but, you know, why that location? Why not in Sublette or somewhere that would have been easier to just accept for us, not for you?
I kind of thought this was a corridor that had both a lot of, you know, this isn't Brooklyn Road or somewhere in the middle of the country where there's no commerce going on. This is an area with a level of demand, and I thought it was a irregular shaped parcel with a lot of visibility that the ag community wouldn't miss in terms of highly productive land. And you know, it's a mixed use area. There's a lot of woods. There's just kind of, to me, it's a corridor where things like this have gone on.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I was 100% for this until she read the letter about the black. I don't know what thing now. And you said there was a petition signed against it?
Yes.
But there's nobody here opposed.
I believe
Brandon is.
Ask them why.
He's the house, right?
Brandon, did you need to say anything?
Yes. Dee. I think what the people of the community are looking for is, if basically what this is going to be for is for Woodhaven. And everybody knows that. It's called Woodhaven Self-Storage right in the name. We don't want to bring that on the other side of 52. The city of Sublette wants to keep everything on the Woodhaven side so that we're not, right now, that corner of 52 and Green Wing is a terrible intersection for during the summer. That intersection backs up on 52 to the north and the south. So what us, the community living on Green Wing and that, are worried about is when the people of Woodhaven then start crossing Green Wing, because right now we're just turning off. It's going to cause major backups and even traffic accidents. They would just like to see it on the other side of 52, because it's pretty easy to see what the base that we're looking for here. It's Woodhaven. This is not a community spirit.
The project is not named Woodhaven. The project is cited right on the Miller document as A1 storage Route 52. If you look, each one of our facilities is named after a town: A1 storage Byron, A1 storage Rochelle, A1 storage Rochelle and Door. This property is not in the community, so instead of picking one or the other, we name storage after the highway that it's on. But it does, it's a very important point that it's not a coincidence that it's nearby Woodhaven. I know that how it brings one new vehicle to the intersection, and IDOT is, we have a letter from IDOT that was submitted to D that says this is the lowest traffic use of any form of development, and they have no need to review the plan. I have another property that we have gone through a similar process, and IDOT has delayed the project by over a year. We spent a significant amount of money with engineering and developed plans for a turn lane. So they go to great lengths with provable data when potential traffic is impacted, and their commentary was that they didn't need to review this site plan.
But they would require that hydraulic analysis be done review.
Which relates to how our water leaves our drainage detention and enters their state culvert.
I don't know how to, like I say, I thought this made a lot of sense until a few minutes ago. I don't like, it's hard for us to overrule the neighbors that live around it. That's, at least it's hard for me to buck them all. They're all, do you have anybody that's in favor of it around it, other than the owner you're buying it from, I assume?
Or Woodhaven.
Well, yeah.
I had a gentleman from Amboy shake my hand in Rochelle and tell me that I beat him to the project. He thought it was a good idea. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean he thinks it's a viable project. He didn't. I mean, but I feel like there's how much neighborhood control does a neighboring property owner get? I mean, that's what zoning boards are for, that don't live. The only question I got at the sublet meeting was for a woman to ask me why I thought this was. So I don't, I mean, it wasn't even a topic that was, I would say, fairly entertaining. And you're talking about something that's 1.3 miles from, 1.4 miles from there. So,
What are you worried about, Brandon? Are you worried about lighting?
I'm worried about, obviously traffic is going to be huge.
I don't think that's true. I don't think traffic will be, like, I think he makes a valid point that it's, you know, they don't come that often. It's not like a business or like a Woodhaven, but maybe on a weekend.
Guys, have you seen the place during the summer on a weekend? It's literally a traffic jam on 52, turning into that road. It's crazy.
So, but that's your biggest concern?
I know actually I think honestly building that where it's at, I don't think it hurts just the 5 acres you're building it on for when we're talking agriculture. I believe it's gonna hurt that whole farm on that side. That water's gonna move through there faster. There's no way if ands or buts about it. I know the golf course on the other side of the road does not support this at all because they just did a bunch of tile work at that end of the course and they're worried about it too.
The very basic aspect of drainage, no matter what kind of project it is that you cannot release water faster than it previously went to its destination. So there's a pond, the water's held, and then there's all kinds of calculations done by professional engineers that make sure the water is released. And those plans are also then reviewed. I would point out that the sub-left comprehensive plan doesn't say anything about keeping all development on the south side of 52. But the south, what it said,
it shows it on that.
What the sub-left comprehensive plan says is that they want to see development from the inside of their town out. Meaning that but it's not really an altogether different topic than Mr. Zellhofer said. It's unlikely that there's many properties that are shape, size, ready for these to go. It just really just doesn't exist in many small towns. And this will be local. There will be Woodhaven, but there will be at every facility we have a cross section of people that use it for their personal use, people that use it for business use, whether that be, it's not uncommon for us to get nearby businesses that don't want to have room for storage or want to do it there, or even places that keep parts because it's on some kind of route. So.
From a farming standpoint, I know everything borders that waterway. Who takes care of that waterway after this is all put there? Because there's a farm on the other side of the waterway that butts up to it.
The acres that we're buying, the same person owns all the acres on the other side of it, of the waterway, and they have reserved easements so that they weren't worried about this affecting the balance of their farm. And like I said, they have easements through the green space along the waterway to maintain their tiles, and that part should go on with no problems.
As I look. What's going on? Mike, can you hear me? It's showing that it's on, but it's acting funky. Can you hear me now? As I go through the items that we have to deal with the finding of facts. And I'm not making any motions, or I'm just kind of talking through this relative to the effects on the character of the neighborhood. It may have some, but I don't know, since being right on a highway like that, and I'm not sure how much it's going to do traffic, proposed use of traffic conditions. Apparently the property on weekends already is backed up. Cars crossing the road probably will not add much to what's already there. Public utilities isn't an issue. Public health, safety and welfare probably are not issues. Proposed use on surrounding properties. If the adjacent properties are the same property owner, and the biggest issue is the waterway, there's a detention pond, and it appears that the property owner is already providing for green space or easement to it. And proposed use on the environmental concerns does not appear to be any. However, we get back into that issue of the plan within Sublet's proposed 1.5 mile. And unlike one of our recent ones, I think last year, where it was turned down on a split decision, this does not appear to be a split decision. I have a problem, as much as I think like Mr. Pratt does, that this seems to be a viable business and does not impact or is relatively good under the finding facts, except with the possible addition of the Lisa's score, which is a high Lisa's score, and could in and of itself be an issue. The only problem is the village of Sublet not accepting it. And I, as much as I think this is a viable use, I have a problem between Louisa and the village of Sublet. So I don't know if we should formally go through the finding of facts or vote and make a motion on it based on.
If we make a motion, then each person can vote their thoughts, but we'd have to go through the findings of fact anyway, so. But we gotta make a motion one way or the other.
Well, shall we go through the finding of facts first then?
Okay.
Proposed use upon the character of the neighborhood.
I would say that very little effect because it's not a high traffic area. People don't go there that often.
Yeah, that's the traffic issue, then the second one, about relative to the character of the neighborhood.
I think it would change the character of the neighborhood because it's ag now. It will no longer be ag. I think it is a radical change to the neighborhood.
Okay, so are you saying that we're having to change the neighborhood?
From ag to, you can't call it commercial, but small business, yeah.
Especially small business? Any other impacts on the neighborhood? Or the character, let's put it this way, the character of the neighborhood? Shall we address that as a motion then?
Yes.
Effect of the proposed use upon the character of the neighborhood would change from ag to special use small business.
Second.
Second.
Craig seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Effective proposed use upon traffic conditions.
I would say it's minimal, just because people don't have a tendency to be in there constantly. Normally when you store something, you store it for a longer period of time and visit every once in a while, and you have to add something to it, take something out.
That's probably not stuff for daily use. So shall we use the state's determination that it's a low traffic business development?
Correct. Read it back.
Effective, is there any other impact on traffic? Effective proposed use of contract conditions, low traffic business development.
That in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay. Good.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Effective proposed use upon public utility facilities.
Very minimal because of sunlight. That's about
Any other?
No well, no septic.
Read it back. Anything else?
No. Read it back as a motion.
Effective proposed use upon public utility facilities, minimal based on limited lighting, no well, no septic.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
Gene seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries.
Effective proposed use upon public health, public safety, and or general welfare.
I would say no effect.
Any other input? No effect.
Is that a motion? Thank you.
Well, I'm no. You make the motions. I'm just describing.
I understand that.
Effective proposed use upon public health, public safety, and or general welfare indicated as no effect.
Second.
Second discerned.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Effects of proposed use upon the surrounding properties.
I don't think it would change anything because it's special use. So there'll be no permanent change. Surrounding properties and the type of business activity wouldn't really bother anybody based on what our other experience has been over the years.
Should I, what do I want to put it down as nominal or?
I would say nominal because there will be some lighting effects. But it's a nominal thing. As far as the water issue should be taken care of with the pond and runoff. So I don't think that's an issue. So I think it's a nominal effect.
Okay, in fact, anything else? Effects of the proposed use upon the surrounding properties, nominal impact.
We have a second.
Second.
Gene seconds. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Effects of the proposed use upon environmental concerns.
Is
The water runoff could be a concern, but it's been addressed. No concerns, I don't think.
No big concerns.
Right.
Okay, anything else? Well, this is the non-budget, so I guess it isn't. No effects of the proposed use upon environmental concerns, no noted concerns.
We have a second. Second. Gene seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And we have section for additional reasons or statements. And all I suppose we can put those in after we make our motion.
So Tim, do you think it'd do any good to go back to Sublette? I keep thinking about that. I hate to turn this petition down, but I hate to approve it without Sublette being more on board. Is there a way we can resolve this?
I gave them a similar presentation that I gave you. As I said, I wasn't invited to the planning commission. I didn't know that I had a planning commission, nor did I know that it was, I would have been more forward looking, but there was no discussion. It was basically a group of people that didn't make eye contact with me and or engage me in questions like you have. And so I think they just didn't have an interest in it. I would say without consideration. I don't know if it would have been better what it would have been. So I don't know what going back there would do. There was trying to think of how the chairman phrased it, but he kind of just said, "Thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting information." And he said, "This doesn't mean that the Lee County Board will consider a greater amount of factors, but for our purposes or as it related to them, they were not in favor of the project." But again, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would say a person, but another villages that I could see it if it was, next to the Sublette Farmers Elevator and something they're going to see, but it is further from Sublette than one end of Sublette to the other end of Sublette. So for them to get a, for lack of a better term, a majority vote in this, I think that's difficult for me to swallow. And
No, but that's kind of always been our pattern, is that if it's a local, like we got another petition and Palmyra Township's in favor of it, so it's hard to vote against it. If they're in favor, it's hard to vote against the local people.
yeah, I mean,
It's a struggle.
I understand that. I guess I'm just not sure that 1.3 miles away from the edge of your commercial part of your village is considered in the neighborhood. And that's almost a unique little, effectively, by any form of growth absorption, I'm 100 years from Sublette.
I agree.
Mr. Roster.
I don't mean to interrupt the religious conversation.
Please interrupt. Please interrupt.
The finding of facts have started. Are you guys reopening for new evidence or what's the?
I think it's time to make a motion and vote. Somebody make a motion one way or the other. Generally, we make a motion.
In the affirmative.
What's that?
In the positive, yes.
In the positive.
I move we approve the petition.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do a roll call vote.
Brad Burrow,
Yes.
Mike Pratt,
Yes.
Gene Bolte.
Yeah.
Glenn Hughes,
Yes.
Bruce Forster.
Yes. Motion approved. Your motion has been approved by this board and will be go before the full county board on Monday. Okay.
Same place. Same place.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah. Procedures and.
Okay, the next petition is petition 21-P-1562. Petitioner is Lincoln Avenue Church of God. And co-petitioner Larry G. Foreman. Permit parcel number 16-07-09-1300.
Larry, come on.
Dash 004. 16-07-09-005.
Bruce, you ought to speak in the mic.
In Elmira Township, petitioners are requesting a special use on the property to be utilized.
I'm speaking, and I believe Larry will be also.
Okay. So. I don't do that.
Make sure.
I need to at least have him be sworn in and put his signature on this. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth. Yes. After you sign that, you state your name and tell us what the petition is about.
May I begin?
You may begin.
Thank you. My name is Linda Geeson. I'm the attorney for Lincoln Avenue Church of God in Dixon, who's one of the co-petitioners for the property at 1620 South Road. My clients have a contract to purchase that property, but it's contingent on getting a special use permit to use it for a place of worship. Just to get your sense of what we're talking about, I printed out the GIS map, and I think I have enough copies for everybody. Maybe not everybody. There you go. Okay. One more.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So if you're looking at that, this side, it's got all these rows. That's the part of the parking lot at Sauk Valley Community College. The property in question is the two parcels that are just to the right of Sauk Road. The southern parcel is the one that actually has the building on it, but my clients have the contract to build both properties. And then the property on the bottom end of the page to the right are the former Sauk dorms that are now, I believe, used as apartments. And then the other is farmland. So obviously there's already a building on this property, but it is zoned as ag. I didn't really study the history of it, but I understand, as it's been told to me, that it had a special use, but then it fell off for lack of use by the prior owner or the prior individuals that had that special use. So we have if you're looking at impacting the character of that property, yes, it's technically ag, but I think the technicality isn't very realistic because there's already a building on And all of that space around it, and our co-petitioner, Larry McCormick, can tell you about the number of parking lots that that represents. So there's really not a problem here with parking. So as we're looking at impacting the character of the neighborhood is really the college, those apartments, and farmland, and then this building. And I think it's really a very favorable impact because, well, a place of worship is certainly not going to be a high traffic. Maybe if a pastor was here, he'd say he'd like it to be a place of high traffic, but right now they just have worship services on Sunday mornings at 9:30, and basically everything else is virtual. So we're not looking at having any high traffic. And I think most neighbors would say they'd rather have a building that has something going on in it than an empty building that certainly could be subject to vandalism and just general decay. So we think that allowing Lincoln Avenue Church of God to get this approval to have a special permit for a place of worship would be nothing but improving the neighborhood. And as you see on this, the GIS map, you enter the property from Sauk Road. You don't enter it from Route 2, so there's no negative impact on traffic. And really, when you think about Sauk's traffic, not much going on the typical Sunday in Sauk, at Sauk. And there are a number of apartments here in this complex is pretty minimal for impacting any kind of traffic. So then the environmental issues, there is a well already for use by the building. There is a septic system. I won't tell you that they've been tested because I haven't gotten any of those reports yet, but we know that is the intent, and we know the well is working because it's feeding some radiators that are functioning inside the building, but I can't tell you any more about the actual condition of it. So we think overall, this special use permit would do nothing but improve the use of that property. And I think frankly, it came as a surprise to my clients that it was still ag because they didn't understand the system of things falling off, if you will. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and Larry McCormick, co-petitioner and his wife, Larry knows more about the history and the parking, so he can address that unless you have any specific questions for me.
So what are you asking for your both lots?
Both lots.
This one and the.
Yes, because we're buying both, and I'm sure we'll be ultimately asking for them to be combined as one parcel. So I wouldn't want to have to come back and put the church through another petition. Don't have any intended use to expand or building over there, but just being realistic about the ownership.
I might add too, Linda, what they did too, they expanded the septic from what they originally had, the surgery center did. They had the original, this is from Lee County Health Department. The original septic was here west of the building, and then they added on more, so that other 3-acre parcel has part of the septic on it, so it really has to stay together. Yeah. And as far as the parking, there's 109 parking stalls. I counted them.
And again, the church would love to fill all 100.
Yeah, yeah.
Larry, how long have you owned this?
Okay, here's the scoop. I've owned it 2 years, okay? And we had planned on doing something with it earlier. Well, we got involved with the banquet hall project in Rock Falls. We started out going to do just a simple banquet hall. We ended up doing a banquet hall, a kitchen, and a restaurant. And I don't regret it at all. It's come out, anybody that's seen it, we've had nothing but nice compliments about it. And, but after I did that, my wife said no more projects. And what we had in mind for it was a nursing home, retirement home, yeah. And actually during the winter, I got sick. I had pancreatitis. And then the church happened to come along at the same time, and wife said, no more project. I thought, you know what? I'll just sell it to them. And that's why I'm not doing anything with it, so, yeah. And that's why, but the banquet hall is all done, yeah. And we've been, actually been doing vaccines over there for the health department, yeah, so. So I don't know, has anybody got any questions, or?
I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
I have none.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have questions? No? All right.
Members of the church are here and are very supportive of the project, obviously.
Yeah, I might add too, they got their present building, already somebody wants to buy it. So it's not like there's gonna be another abandoned building, right? Yeah.
So let's do the findings of fact.
All right. Moving on to the findings of facts. Effective proposed use upon the character of the neighborhood.
I don't think it'll change the character of the neighborhood, probably improve it.
Okay. Which would be consistent with the findings from Delmar Township. So anything else relative to the character of the neighborhood? Okay. Effect of the proposed use upon the character of the neighborhood, minimal, possibly improved.
Second it.
Did you say second?
I second.
Mike seconds. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Effect of the proposed use upon traffic conditions. I'd say those have got to be pretty minimal. Not only will it be but with the traffic control signal coming off of Highway 2, and this entrance being on Sauk Road, I don't see
the problem. And the other thing is they worship on Sunday in schools and it's anyway, so it doesn't really have any.
Okay, so we can just leave it at minimal.
Minimal, we'll call it.
Effect of the proposed use upon traffic conditions would be minimal.
Second. 8 seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Effective proposed use upon public utility facilities.
Very minimal.
Proposed none. Probably because they've got a well and septic, common and natural gas are already there. And as far as that goes, probably using less than the surgical center probably would. Okay. Effects of the proposed use upon public utility facilities would be none.
Is there a second? Second. 8 seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Effective proposed use upon public health, public safety, and/or general welfare. None.
None.
But you look out for them all.
Make it simple.
So none. Anything else? Anybody have any other comment? So effective proposed use upon public health, public safety, and/or general welfare would be none.
Gene second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Effects of proposed use upon the surrounding properties.
Once again, I would say no.
Very low.
Other comments, then effects of the proposed use upon the surrounding properties would be no.
Second. Gene seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Effects of the proposed use upon environmental concerns.
I don't think there's
None.
existing buildings, so I don't think there's any other structures all there.
Okay, that being said, the motion being the effects of proposed use upon environmental concerns to be none.
Second. Gene seconds. Any discussion?
Larry, how old is that building? Anybody know?
I'd say 20, 25 years old. Right in there, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but when Ken Hawk had it, he put a new roof. So the roof is still under warranty. Is that what it was? So there's a roof that's only 5, 6 years old on it, so.
Okay.
Anyway, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And I would make the motion to approve this special use.
You get a second? Second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Motion for your decision will now go to the full county board.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient. Yeah, that's okay.
Our good. Nice to see you.
Bruce. Call it recess.
Yeah, we can call a quick recess and then
No.
right back here.
Don't do my book.
or a shiny one.
Okay, the next petition is petition 21-P-1563, petitioner BSW Devco LLC, permanent parcel found on file located in East Grove and May Township. Petitioner is requesting the repower of the wind farm. At this time, I'd like to have a motion to turn the meeting over to our facilitator, Judge Slater.
So, second.
Gene did the first. Made the motion and one second. No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Lee County ZBA. First of all, I will note that under the current mitigation protocols of the Illinois Department of Public Health, we're allowed to have 50 members in the meeting room. I will note that at the moment there are 6 board members, Mr. Forrester, Mr. Burrow, Mr. Botham, Mr. Pratt, Mr. Myers, and Mr. Hughes, our planning zoning officer, Ms. Duffy, the Sweet State's Attorney, Charlie Bloomstra, the right-hand assistant zoning officer, Alice, court reporter, and himself, making Dave Stryker, representing 12 people. And Alice, 1 on Zoom.
We have 3 on Zoom.
Okay, I can only see 1.
We have, no, 1 for sure is with the project. Michael's member and
Andrew DePass. Okay, three folks appearing on Zoom. All right. I hope everyone's healthy, remaining safe. As you probably know, but I will say again, my name is Tim Slavin. I'm a retired circuit judge engaged as an independent contractor to what is called facilitate this hearing. I have no adjudicatory responsibilities. I am not for or against any particular position. I am a neutral. I am here, hopefully, however, to add some organization, efficiency, and flow to these proceedings. This is BSW Devco LLC's latest petition, Lee County 21P-1563, for a special use permit to what is called, in the vernacular, repower a proposed wind energy conversion system in East Grove and May Townships here in Lee County. As shown by a certificate of publication, notice of this hearing was published in the Dixon Telegraph and the Amboy News, both on April 21st of this year. Due diligence notices to property owners adjacent to the boundary of the existing project's footprint have also been provided. First of all, hoping you understand, I suspect that what is left of tonight's opening session will be taken up by this presentation, some organizational matters as we set some ground rules. Initially, because of the unique circumstances visited upon us courtesy of COVID-19, Region 1, which includes Lee County, has moved into phase 4 of the Department of Public Health's Restore Illinois Resurgence Plan. Excuse me. Accordingly, this hearing room's capacity has now been raised to 50 total people, but all should continue to wear masks except when speaking. In addition to this former courtroom, there are spaces in the rear former jury room, which can accommodate another 13 people who can watch, listen, and participate on the Zoom setup in there. I hope this all helps everyone feel medically comfortable, and importantly, the meaningful upshot of all this is that 63 people can still be in this building and comply with the present restrictions. Then, of course, an unlimited number of folks will be able to participate on the Zoom platform or watch and listen on YouTube from more remote locations like their homes or businesses. D. Duffy has gone to extraordinary lengths to advertise and post the Zoom entry and YouTube viewing information, but it never hurts to repeat those things. The Zoom meeting ID is 915-3923-9154, and the password is 209840. That meeting ID and password will continue to remain the same throughout the course of this hearing. Accordingly, if you're not with us in building tonight, you can always join us during future sessions on either, you can participate on Zoom or view the proceedings on YouTube. The Zoom platform is interactive. One may not only see and hear what is taking place, but when appropriate stages come, one may ask a witness questions, one may call a witness him or herself, one may testify, and one may give a closing comment. As to YouTube, on your computer or cell phone, use your browser, go to www.youtube.com. In the search bar, type Lee County IL, short for Illinois, Zoning Board of Appeals. No need to be concerned with upper or lowercase letters. That should bring up a list of Lee County ZBA YouTubes. You can input and select the date, and voila, you should be seeing us here in the hearing room. However, please be advised that this YouTube feed will, because of those ubiquitous cyberspace thingies, have a short real-time delay. In case you're not a techno geek, for assistance with any of these things, you may call 815-973-3449, Ms. Duffy's Technical Assistance Line. I'm sure we all appreciate the protocols developed by this incredibly hardworking D. Duffy and the expertise of Lee County's IT department to allow these proceedings to even take place, particularly with so much accommodation given to the circumstances. Okay, now for a bit more substance. As I've alluded, there are two groups of attendees at this Zoning Board of Appeals hearing as it moves forward. One, I've already alluded to, is necessaries. These are people who must attend this hearing in person. They consist of your hardworking, practically volunteer Zoning Board of Appeals members, your zoning officer, D. Duffy, our expert assistant zoning officer and IT tech, Alice Hinkle, your astute state's attorney, Charlie Brunster, petitioner's attorney, Dave Striker, a few of his client's representatives, a witness, and himself, and hardly but least our hardworking and skilled court reporter, Callie. The other group I will call interested parties. These are those of you folks who are with us either in building or more remotely on the Zoom video or teleconferencing platform, or viewing and listening to the proceedings on YouTube because you simply want to observe your county government at work, or beyond that, you have a particular interest in these proceedings. The next process I will try to explain is the methodology for turning on the mic. 25. How about now? The next process I will try to explain is the methodology for these interested parties to participate. I emphasize, please know that everyone will have that opportunity, and I want to provide the opportunity to participate in a manner that is as orderly and as efficient as possible. However, because of the necessary electronic filtering, my usual process becomes even more central, and I will flesh out more of this further in my presentation. There are many possible reasons for an interested party appearance in this session or further sessions, whether in person or remote. You could be a member of the public who is joining us simply as a citizen and spectator. You could be a member of the public who wants to be heard. This does not necessarily mean someone who is absolutely for or absolutely against the requested special use, but someone who wants to participate. If you are such a person, you will fall into one of three subcategories. One, you want to give testimony. This means you desire under oath to have you or a witness of your calling testify to facts relevant to the board's eventual decision. Such is not the time to describe your feelings or announce your opinion, but to avert facts, and you are subject to cross-examination. Everyone so wishing to testify will be given one opportunity to do so. Two, you may want to be able to cross-examine the witness, but please, this is just the time to ask questions of a particular witness, not to argue with one another. Everyone wishing to cross-examine will be given one opportunity to cross-examine each and every witness. Or you may be here just because you want to make a closing statement or a public comment. This is your opportunity to give a speech, tell the board how you feel, or give them your opinion based on the facts adduced during the whole hearing process as to what their decision should be. During this closing statement or speech stage, one cannot allege new facts, because when one thinks about it, the reason for this is simple. The two most important parts of adducing the truth of matters in a hearing are missing during a speech or public comment. The speaker is not under oath, nor is he or she subject to cross-examination. Everyone so wishing to give a closing statement will be given one opportunity to do so. For those of you joining us on the Zoom platform this evening or in the future, that interactive software allows an interested party to indicate a desire when the time comes to ask questions of the witness, to present one's own evidence, to testify oneself, or to give a closing statement or public comment. So, when I indicate the time has come to begin one of those interested party stages, I will ask for participation from the Zoomers, whether here in the old courthouse, in the back of your room, at home, or in another rural location. If one is video conferencing, simply click on the icon at the bottom center of the Zoom screen labeled participants, and from that option, the option will then appear. Click raise hand. We will see a hand raised on the screen here in the courtroom. If one is remotely teleconferencing while remaining connected, one needs the star. That means you're not video conferencing, but you're just on your cell phone. One needs the star or the asterisk symbol, and then the arrow numeral number 9 on your phone. So star 9. Either way, we should not see any raised hands, and I will call on each raised hand. However, I don't think we'll be able to do so on a first raised, first come basis. So calling the raised hands will probably be done more randomly, referring by name, email address, or the last 4 digits of the phone number that appear on our display. Written communication sent in advance of this hearing or any written material intended is something for the board to consider as subject to the board rule Article 5, Section 12, that 80 copies be provided. Any communications received that do not comply with this requirement may not be considered by the board. I will now review the chronological progress of the hearing. I know that the narration that follows is boring and tedious, but please, resetting is for everyone's benefit, to help you feel comfortable and not worry that you will not have a fair and complete opportunity to participate. But at the same time, to alert you when 3 distinct opportunity forms of participation will present. The applicant has the burden of initially going forward. Accordingly, its agent or attorney, Mr. Stryker, may first make opening remarks. Then the applicant presents evidence, one witness or document at a time. I will place each witness under oath or affirmation. After each applicant witness, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA, and then interested parties, both on-site and remotely, have the opportunity to cross-examine each one of those witnesses. And please, once again, this is just the time for questions directed to the witness testifying. After the applicant's evidence, the zoning officer has the opportunity to present witnesses for documents she chooses. After each zoning officer witness, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA first, and then interested parties, both on-site and remote, have the opportunity to cross-examine her witnesses. And again, this is just the time for questions. After the applicant and zoning officer have presented their evidence, then interested parties may present their evidence, one witness, including themselves, or document at a time. I will place each such witness under oath or affirmation. After each interested party witness, the applicant, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA, and other interested parties have the opportunity to cross-examine each of those interested party witnesses. The applicant may then offer rebuttal witnesses or documents one at a time. If they are witnesses, they can be then cross-examined in a similar fashion. If the applicant does present rebuttal witnesses, then the interested parties may present rebuttal witnesses one at a time, and they will be cross-examined in the same manner I described. Finally, first, the applicant is given an opportunity for closing remarks, and then any interested parties will be given opportunity for closing statements, public comments, or speeches, whichever term you prefer. They're all the same thing. There are some sub-rules after which I promise I will be finished boring you further. As you may have heard, each session, except obviously tonight, has a time limit under the board rules of 2.5 hours. However, we certainly don't want to cut anybody off right in the middle of something, so I will certainly make a reasonable effort to let someone finish a particular stage when the time limit has been reached. Or, if there is very little time remaining at the end of the stage, I may simply continue the session rather than starting on another stage. I also have the discretion to call for short recesses during the evening. Under the zoning board rules, I have the duty to rule on the admissibility of evidence. While the strict judicial rules of evidence do not apply, I will exercise some equitable control over the thing presented with or without objection. We do, and we will continue to have a court order here taking down those staff during these proceedings. I ask all to be mindful of her job. She cannot take down two people talking at once. She cannot take down a nodding head with gestures. And while I happen to know she's very skilled, there is a limit to how fast a person can talk, including me, and expect her to keep up. I do ask, please, for civility and decorum. This is certainly a public forum, but please be respectful of all who consider it important enough to be here. I ask all to refrain from displays of approval or disapproval, and as now with all public gatherings, I request that during the proceedings, you either turn your cell phone off or put them on silent. Lastly, your zoning board of appeals, these fine, hardworking, and practically volunteer gentlemen, act as finders of fact, much akin to a jury in their role. Their decisions during the last stage of the proceedings, findings of fact, recommendations, are based on the sworn testimony, admitted exhibits, and closing statements they received during the hearing process. They are your friends, your neighbors, and fellow citizens of the Lee County. So please appreciate and respect their role as we move through the days and weeks ahead. I ask you not to put them in a compromised position by lobbying them or having extra-during conversations or correspondence until the entire hearing, including their decisions, have been completed. In fact, they have been instructed to avoid these appearances of impropriety by politely telling the parties something like, "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to discuss the matter until the ZBA work of finding facts and recommendations is complete." Thank you for your understanding in all these regards. All right. That is over. Let's, gentlemen, talk about the next hearing nights, and we can. I have some dates. I hope you all have your calendars. I am eyeing as available future dates. Tuesday, May 11th. Mr. Forster.
That's good. Yes.
Mr. Burrow.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I did. Mr. Bolte?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Alice?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Mr. Striker?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Do we have to worry about anybody from IT or not? No? Okay. Monday the 17th. Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
No.
Mr. Bolte?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Mr. Stitchern,
Yes.
Mr. Striker,
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
All right, then we skip for a variety of reasons up to June 7th. That's a Monday. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Bothy,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy.
No. There's a planning commission meeting.
Okay, so that's out. All right. Thursday, the 10th of June, we're talking about. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Bothy,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy,
Yes.
Ms. Alice,
Yes.
Mr. State's Attorney,
Yes.
Mr. Striker,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and I'm gonna try one more. Thursday, the 17th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Bothy,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
No.
Judge, before you get too far.
Yep.
Kind of board meeting.
Yep.
Oh.
Well, okay, so that leaves three available, May 11, May 17, and June 10. We'll leave it at that for now, and we'll see how things progress. There's not as much pressure on because the similar hearings to the same projects going on in Bureau County, and that Bureau going to start in July 15th. Although I prefer not to have them both going at the same time, at least there's no pressure to attend because the Bureau won't be able to go out for hours. We've got time. All right, Mr. Striker, did you plan on giving an opening tonight or?
Judge, I would leave that at discretion of the ZBA. I'm prepared to give approximately.
They're all dead.
Oh,
They're all dead except.
Except mine. Well, go ahead. She can hear you.
I said I am ready to give an opening statement of approximately 5 minutes. I am happy to, if we are going to continue the hearing, I could give the opening statement in advance of presenting a witness at the next night.
Let's do that. Okay. You guys have enough.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll recess until Tuesday the 11th at 6. Gentlemen, would you like that time?
No, now we're getting into planting season.
Okay, so
9 o'clock.
Start at 9.
Is 7 okay with everybody?
Yep. 7.
And will you just do me the favor, letting me know when you feel the 6, we can go back to the 6? Planning goes, everybody.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Or never, right? Okay, 7 o'clock on the 11th. You said, that's next week.